Hi there, and welcome to Shapers, Makers, Builders, and Breakers. I am your podcast host today, Riel Milan. Shapers is a podcast show that brings you African leadership stories in all spheres of society, where we interview exceptional individuals telling us their story. This podcast is brought to you by Exeo Capital. Exeo Capital is a leading alternative private equity fund manager that through its 15-year history have focused on investing in African businesses with purpose and impact. Exeo covers the whole of the African continent with investment teams based in Cape Town, South Africa and Nairobi, Kenya, currently managing investments in 9 African countries. The core investment thesis revolves around partnering with exceptional businesses and their teams that have the ability to impact Africa in the decades to come. Exeo does this through providing growth capital to these businesses, but more than that, leveraging a partnership ethos with the companies they invest in. For more information, please have a look at their website, www.exeocapital.com. That is www.exeocapital.com.
Since the start of the Shapers podcast, the approach to interviews has remained the same. Engage in peer-to-peer conversations by asking the questions that we would most like the answers to. As with all our episodes, this special brings out lessons and insights and offers wisdom and inspiration for us all.
I have the privilege to sit down this afternoon with Solly Moeng. I'm pronouncing that correctly, Solly. So Solly is the managing director of Don Valley, a brand reputation management agency. He would have appeared on many of your radar screens in some of his columns. His involvement in the PR and brand management space dates back to around 1995. And if I look at his CV, he specializes in brand management, PR, media relations, strategic communications across various sectors and various
reputation management,
which is
really, they're all linked.
But yeah. I think we're going to talk about specifically digital reputation management, which is becoming a bit of a nightmare for most high-profile people. So Solly is also a reputation management lecturer and a sought-after speaker on the topic at global seminars. He's been living abroad, and he's a great objective view from a distance, often, and topics that we are grappling with here in South Africa. And what I appreciate about him and what led to this conversation is that he's motivated to see a better South Africa. And he's put his money where his mouth is, and he's established the United South African Movement, TUSAM, to mobilize and inspire and rally individuals and groups in civil society, politics, business, and other sectors to work together towards an effective and sustainable democratic change in South Africa. Solly's CV just goes on and on and on. He's also past president of the Public Relations Institute of Southern Africa, and as the vice president of the World Communications Association, Forum Association. Mm-hmm. He's responsible for branding and from a country-oriented perspective for the African region. So Solly, great to finally catch up with you on your trip here in Cape Town.
Thank you. Thanks.
Welcome.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, great to sit down and have this conversation. So maybe we've just informally discussed your very colourful run-up from ballroom dancing through to French lessons to moving to Switzerland, but maybe I always ask guests to just give an abbreviated sort of history of what formed you, what shaped you, where you were born, what brought you to become Solly to this point.
When do we become the person that we are? Really?
It's a work in progress for most of us.
I was born in Diepkloof, Soweto.
Yeah.
My father, I was actually the child of my father's second wife. He was not married to 2 women. His first wife died. He was not a very lucky man, so he had 2 sons from his first wife who died. Then he met my mother, who was about 20 years younger than him. They fell in love with each other. They had 3 kids together. I'm the second. Mm-hmm. And then when I was 8 years old, going on 9, my mother died.
Oh.
It says on her birth certificate, liver failure, but in those days they put anything. But she was a very, 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 very religious person. People ask me, was she drinking? Was she like a drinker? I said, no, not at all. She was far from it. She was, if anything, closest to God. And but anyway, she fell ill and she died. And my father decided, I remember he was very devastated by her loss. He decided no more women in the house. We never got married again. So we grew up, my sister and I and another brother. Through, we had my elder brother from the previous wife of my father and aunt and other people, friends of my mother. We got along. Many kids go. We are part of a community.
And this is now in the peak, sort of towards the really tumultuous times of apartheid.
My mother died in 1975.
Okay.
And so I grew up in Soweto. Much of my childhood was in Soweto. I was there. In 76, I was still young, but I remember throwing stones. Many kids wanted to throw stones. We didn't know what it was all about. I did my primary school in Soweto, and it's a long story, but eventually I got. Then I was, in terms of things that you do when you're not at school. I used to be a ballroom dancer. When other boys went to play football, I went to dance at the local community hall. It was a safe space. And then by coincidence, the French, the Alliance Française of Soweto was opened there in 1983. It opened in January 1983. It was only in March 1983 that I joined them through pressure. Everybody else around me was going bonjour. I was okay, I want to do this bonjour thing, so I can fit in if you want. And it didn't take long to be told, oh, you're picking this thing up very quickly. One day you'll speak very good French. Now I speak French very well. And then the French government, I got a scholarship to go to Wits. I did a BA degree there, specialized in French and linguistics. I also studied sociology, anthropology, philosophy, international relations. And eventually I went to France to do my postgraduate. I did an MA degree there.
That would be which year now?
1992. 92 I was in France.
Okay. On that
I went to France twice. So the first time they took me was just to immerse me in the language. It was in December of, I don't know, maybe probably 88 or something like that. I went 88, 89. I went in December to a place called Vichy. Vichy is a very interesting place. Historically in France, it's a place, people remember it for Marshal Pétain, the guy who shook the hand of Hitler. Mm-hmm. A lot of people have very mixed feelings about Vichy because it's the only part of France that was not occupied by the Germans during the Second World War. It was led by a French Marshal, Pétain, who said to Hitler, don't worry, I'm your friend or something. He shook his hand. So people don't remember. Some people are still angry at that. But it's also known for pharmaceutical products. Vichy products are very popular all over the world.
Oh, that's right, the brand, the cosmetic brand.
Mineral water, cosmetic brand is very big. Yes. But it's also known for an international language school called CAVILAM, Centre Audiovisuel des Langues Modernes. A lot of students from non-French speaking countries who aspire to study in French go there. There are other places, but it's one of the big centers. Also, diplomats coming from non-French speaking countries usually end up there for a period before they're sent on to Paris. And so I was there. I stayed there twice, but the good thing is that even in your class, you could be 18, 20 in your classes. Nobody else speaks English. So the teacher cannot translate. Anyway, the teacher didn't understand English. But it's the best way to learn the language quickly because you have to explain things. You have to go to to buy bread, to go to the post office, to go wherever you are. It's French. Only a few people spoke English. So I think it quite helped. And after that, eventually, to just fast forward, I ended up at the it's called Université de Franche-Comté in Besançon. It's a lovely place in the region of Franche-Comté. Victor Hugo was born there, 1802. It's a beautiful place that I always remember, and when I can, I go to visit.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I came back to South Africa for a short period. I ended up in tourism. I ended up being offered a job in Canada. And then
because obviously of your French
because they needed somebody there was nobody taking care of the Quebec market, and they needed a South African who speaks French. So I ended up there for 4 or 5 years. It was really, really good. And I made a lot of friends. I studied more about tourism, got to know the country because you have to visit the country, South Africa, to understand the product that you sell over there. But it was more than just marketing. Eventually you realize that actually it's managing the reputation of South Africa, because those were early days when many people had left fearful of what would happen under the ANC. Even in those days, they had foresight. And my job was to explain. It wasn't just say to people, "Hey, you must visit South Africa; it's beautiful," but to explain the fears. Because you also had South Africans who would be in a room when you're addressing Canadians, say, "Hey, this is Kruger Park, Cape Town, the Garden Road," and somebody would say, "No, don't go there; you'll be killed." Somebody from South Africa.
So that's sort of a roundabout way to start getting into reputation management, wasn't
it? Yeah. Over time,
and PR, because that was, you were primarily there to sell South Africa
correct.
As a salesperson.
Correct.
Because of the situation that the country was in and then where the history was finding itself, you found yourself actually
more than just selling, educating, but also defending the brand.
Yeah.
Defending that under Mandela South Africa. I mean, I used to be very arrogant about South Africa. Maybe that's why I'm so hurt and angry at what it has become. Because some people would say, yeah, it's just a matter of time before you become another African country, like all their failed states. I would say, you're crazy. Never. It's never going to happen. Now I'm the one who's running around with my tail between my legs.
Sometimes it's and I have to say, I fall in the same category as you.
Yeah.
But I think often you're also committed to making the brand work. So
we can't give up on it. I mean, giving up is not an option. But I think that you can't heal from anything if you first don't acknowledge that if you're suffering from something, you got to acknowledge it first before you can deal with it.
And I think this is what's we've been connected on, I think it was LinkedIn and social media for a couple of years now, and I think that's what caught my eye. Is that I think your history and and how you've been exposed to the various aspects and the decline of the brand South Africa gives you, I think, a specific vantage point which you've always been very bravely been defending and been batting from a specific vantage point. So maybe take us through coming back, and we spoke about why you left a couple of years ago, but maybe take us through now you're back in South Africa. You have the experience of having been marketing the country and
I worked here. What first brought me to Cape Town after Canada, I was offered the job of marketing manager for the then National Botanical Institute based at Kirstenbosch. Now it's called the South African National Biodiversity Institute. Yep. Still then responsible for the 8 then national botanical gardens, 3 of which are in the Western Cape, Kirstenbosch, Karoo, and Betty's Bay, and there are others, Roodepoort, Pietermaritzburg, and Durban, Limpopo, etc. So then I got to understand the flora, the importance of the flora, biodiversity, how important it was. It wasn't just the botanical gardens, of course. It was the herbarium. There was a lot of scientific work done on discovering endangered species. There was a whole endangered species program that I was very fascinated about. I went to Chelsea Flower Show a few times to showcase the beauty of South Africa's flora. So this country is amazing. I mean, this is one of the most beautiful countries in the world. And having lived at Kirstenbosch was the most beautiful period of my life.
Biodiversity is unbelievable.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been up to other botanical gardens in the world, but Kirstenbosch is unique because most of the flora there is indigenous to South Africa. So I got to know the country, and subsequent to that, I also worked for what used to be called Western Cape Nature Conservation Board, which is now Cape Nature. Actually, I led the process to rebrand it to Cape Nature. And I'm proud of it, because I didn't do it on my own, but I managed the process. And I've been through the country. I love this country. I've been involved with many people. And then I went into consultation. In 2006, I started Don Valley. 2006. Don Valley, it was ran brand marketing and communications. Now it's rebranded since to Don Valley brand for reputation managers. We had offices with people working for us. Now it's also in the post-COVID era. Things are different. to reduce cost. And I'm not in South Africa anymore anyway. And I've worked for a number of interesting companies, both for private sector entities and public sector entities. I've worked for companies in oil and gas, nuclear, tourism, hospitality, fashion. I, at some point, was head of corporate comms and PR at Woolies. They brought me in not I was not an employee, I was a contractor. So the head of corporate comms and PR was poached by Air Emirates, and they asked me to come in. They said initially 3 months, come and lead the team and do the work of protecting and enhancing brand. And 3 years, almost 4 years later, I was still there.
So and again, just listening to your history, so you were part of Cape Nature and Kirstenbosch. Again, you were building the brand.
Yeah.
You were promoting the brand.
Yeah, definitely.
So that it was almost a natural progression, wasn't it?
Yeah,
In terms of of where you started out.
Yeah, when I was at Kirstenbosch, we founded the Big Six marketing, and I was very much at the center of studying the Big Six, which was Kirstenbosch, Robben Island, Table Mountain, the V&A waterfront, Cape Point, and the Winelands. So all the marketing managers of these areas got together. They said, how do we work together? How do we recommend one another? How do we, at each one of these facilities, create information that tells people coming there of others? But I also made partners in the private sector. The Vineyard Hotel and the family, the Petusis, are still friends even today. They own the hotel, the Eau de Verf in Stellenbosch, and they're all the Cape Town, Townhouse Hotel in Cape Town. Okay. And I still friends. So I made a lot of friends in the tourism industry, but I really got to know South Africa. I've been to many tourist shows around the world, of course, when I worked for South African tourists, because after Canada, I was country manager in the USA, in Hawaii, many of those places. So I love this country, and I, as I said, I was one of the defenders of this country. I still am, but I'm a pained defender of this country because it's a brand that I've seen with so much potential. But if you give any brand really, it's a company, NGO, church group, family group, and you place it in the hands of people who have no understanding of the journey of the brand and who are not able to set the tone from the front, to lead by example, to respect the values, and to ensure, to know that the values and the regulations, the values are for everybody. You don't say, we don't do this here, but then you do it behind. You know what I'm saying?
And we're going to get, I want to put a pin in that, and we're going to get back to that one. Just to close the loop on your history. And you mentioned that in 2019, you decided to make the move to Switzerland. 2021, sorry, just after COVID. COVID struck in 2019, and you made the move just after that.
Yeah, it is a painful move. Let me tell you. I think it's important. I never want to portray myself as a victim, because I went into the kitchen knowing there would be heat. So I'm not a victim. So in 2018, I launched a thing called the Africa Brand Summit. Well, before we called it the South Africa Brand Summit. Yep. But it was always going to be incubated as South Africa Brand Summit and become the Africa Brand Summit in 3 years' time. There were some of the most impressive South Africans there. The Chief Justice then, Moeng was there. Tulima Donsela was there. Bruce Whitfield, leaders in business, Mondli Makanya, leaders in academia, society, all media,
civil society and business.
Yeah, and they came there, and the aim was, let's talk about brand South Africa. Let's talk about what we do into this amazing brand, okay? And I kid you not, and I haven't shared the report with you because there's a report. I'll send it to you after this. And it was so impressive. People said, please, Solly, we need to have this conversation in Johannesburg so more people can access it. 2019, we went to Johannesburg. SA Tourism was great. They helped me. They said, instead of you knocking on doors for support, we'll help you put together a city bid, so that these cities, because we wanted it to be in Gauteng, so we invited Pretoria, Otswane, and Johannesburg to bid. Johannesburg presented the best bid. But around the same time, I was told that somebody in the ANC said, we don't want this thing. We don't want this guy. Actually, the CEO of Brand SA at the time, he said to have said, we can't work with this guy. He's going to embarrass Zuma, the president. The marketing team wanted to work with me. Actually, they came down to Cape Town to discuss this concept. They said, yes, let's do it. But then there was pushback, political pushback. They said, we're not doing this. When they heard it was coming to Joburg, because I had my people who spoke to me, both in the executive and on the board of SA, of Brand SA. I was told, we're not doing this. We're not allowing. We're going to fund a guerrilla campaign. I was told that the then minister of communications, I can name her name if you want to say her. She Stella Abrahams something. Stella Abrahams, Ndabeni Abrahams. She I'm told, gave permission for a fund to be put aside for a guerrilla campaign. It's not my word, to make sure this thing, to disrupt this thing, basically. So they went onto my website and they called people, you, why are you attending this thing? Why are you going to this thing? We're not going to support you over there if you do. Even, I'm told, the Marketing Association of South Africa, was told, if you support this guy, we're not getting any support.
So this was in fear that the
speaking
government,
truth to power.
The truth about
Yeah,
what
basically,
power, the regime that was in power and still is, but at that time specifically, it was the Zuma years and the state capture years.
Yeah, a number of things were considered that maybe they could come in but inform the agenda, the content of what got discussed. And I said, no, you're not here to. You can bring a speaker, but you're not coming to tell us we can talk about this or that. So and apparently there was discussion. So how do we then take this thing away for him? So we. But the long story short is that in the end, we had to make a lot of changes in the last minute. Sponsors ran away. Even people who had committed to support this thing, in the end, guess who stayed with the bill? Me. Okay, so I was had really bad by this thing. And people were told I'm the enemy of the revolution, the enemy of South Africa. I don't speak out against this country. I love this country. I speak out against the people we gave power to run this country, who've misruled, stolen from us. Even today, the levels of corruption, impunity, arrogance are still rife even as I sit here. All right, those are the people I speak out to because they are messing up my country, your country, our country. Yeah. All right, and I will not stop until they put a bullet in my head.
And I think that's what I've always respected about your voice is that you don't scuttle around the.
No, because if you don't say what needs to be said, people don't understand what you're saying. If you're ambiguous, you're political, you're too polite. And I speak to a lot of people here. I get frustrated with people who are afraid to look the beast in the eye and call it what it is. Then we end up with too many false conversations.
If there's one thing that I think South Africans, we are at a crossroads. We need to speak up.
But you have too many are still afraid. I kid you not. I sit in meetings with people. Even ahead of the next elections, they are afraid to say, we don't want the ANC. They will say it in the corridor, in the meetings, but let's not appear to be against anybody. No, we are against the ANC. The ANC must go. And we don't want the EFF. The EFF's leader, have you heard this guy's dude? He has a short fuse. This country is so diverse, so beautiful. You don't need a leader he almost clapped somebody at the AU, for instance. Who's somebody who's going to come and lead this country who still has unresolved childhood anger issues? You can't lead a country like this. You can't lead South Africa if, first of all, you don't acknowledge that it will always be a diverse country. And the world and the strength of these people, our people, is in the diversity, whether you like it or not. Okay, people bring different perspectives. There are people who care about plants, animals, humans, nature, because of this diversity. The truth of the matter, most people who care about plants or endangered species are white people. Okay? I don't know if... but the fact is, because of this diversity...
It works.
It works, because each one of the people from each group, religious, racial, ethnic, brings up. Now, when you have the leadership of such a complex country saying our people, only referring to one bloc, then that's wrong. Mm-hmm. And you know what? We should never live again anymore, whether it's in South Africa, in Israel, or Palestine, elsewhere, in a world where for the winner takes all. Okay, you can't be there and be happy forever. Zero-sum games don't work anyway.
Yeah, I've mentioned it in the previous podcast, is that 90%, we're 90% the same, but we focus on the 10% that divides us.
Yeah.
And that 10%, like you say, is what's giving us that diversity and that power and the alternative views and the
Exactly.
And the balance.
Exactly. You know, when Barack Obama when he first became president of America, he went to Ghana. He addressed the joint sitting of parliament in Ghana. And one of the things that he said there was, Africa doesn't need strong men or strong women, if you want. It needs strong institutions. So I thought, but we have the institutions in South Africa. But the problem is we place the wrong people at the head of those institutions. This country also inherited from apartheid a potentially strong institutional starter pack. Instead of building on from that, we destroyed it. I grew up in Johannesburg, okay? And we used to go to town in Johannesburg. Before it was during apartheid, it was bad, but it was a beautiful city. There were parks, there was a city, there was a library. I remember Elof Street and all. I mean, it was awesome. It was beautiful. It's just a pity that there was racism and all. But I mean, every day we walked the streets. We went to Checkers, okay, or to these places, and we went to the Carlton Center. It was beautiful. But go there today, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. You can't blame that on apartheid.
It's in a cycle of decline, and it's been in decline for decades.
Yeah. And people are not taking responsibility for it. You know, when you try to raise this, they'll say, yeah, but it was just for white. No, it's nonsense. Of course there was apartheid. Of course I've been refused right into a restaurant when I was a little boy. Some French diplomats tried to take me to a restaurant. We were told, no, but we don't accept blacks. That's true. Those things happened. It was terrible. Okay? But the institutions, from a functioning perspective, they worked. The city was beautiful. The streets were clean. The parks were taken care of. Now there's nothing. Now you see condoms over the place. Anyone who wants to come and sell stuff that you already sell in your store can just pitch up outside your store and sell, and you can't stop them.
It was interesting. A European friend of mine the other day had an analogy. We spoke about exactly the same thing, and he was saying that if you look at most European nations, there's so much trauma. I mean, whether it's occupations, whether it's First, Second World War, whether it's 100 years back and it's colonialism. And all nations have tremendous trauma.
Of course.
If you look at my ancestors, the Huguenots, they were burnt at the cross. But the reality of it is, if we, I mean, to your point, if we never get over it and we don't learn from it, we can't move on. In a society, we don't move on. So that is a fantastic view. But that led you then to make the difficult choice to leave, or you were to a degree forced to leave.
Just before I answer that, look. Nobody owns all pain, historic pain. All humans have gone through pain.
Yeah.
We all sit on our heels. If we don't visit our heels, we can never see the world from the perspective of the heel of the other person. Yeah. So we think our heel is more important. Our pain is more important. Why must I listen to yours? You must listen to mine because mine is important. Then we don't get out of it. We need to get over ourselves and realize that if we continue feeding the beast of man's inhumanity over others, we'll never heal. And when you're on top today, one day you'll be on the bottom. You can't build your throne with bayonets and expect to sit on it forever, peacefully, without having to look over your shoulders. Nobody, no matter who you are. So I moved to Switzerland. After many years, look, there was a silent persecution of me for many years in South Africa. But I didn't want to give them the pleasure of playing victim. Okay? People who worked with me were told, you can't work with Solly. I've had contracts cancelled. And some of the stuff that happened, I learned after I went to Switzerland. People said, Solly, actually, this is what happened over there. I had friends, associates of mine, who were told, listen, we're really prepared to give you this contract, but you must remove Solly from your website, or Solly can't be a member of the team. So at some point, I realized that my whole livelihood was being constrained. I wasn't able to earn income here. So in 2021, and a friend of mine in Switzerland, he lived here. He moved to Switzerland, and he invested in 2 restaurants. And he said, "Solly, why don't you come here? Why don't you come?" I kept saying, "No, I want to keep trying. But then a point came in 2021 after the summit I hosted to the Africa Ben Summit, and people were again. It was continuing. People just cancelled on me, invest funders, and nobody wanted to touch me except my very few friends. And I thought, okay, this is going to impact my health. I need to get out of here. So around that time, when I was like sitting there thinking, this friend of mine said, "Hey, Solly, I'm still inviting you. You come here. I give you a contract. You work for me in one of my restaurants, because that's what I do actually. I give you 50% contract, and you can do your other stuff." So that's the arrangement. I said, "Okay, I'll come to Switzerland," and he gave me a job offer, if you want. And 50% of the time, I'm learning to make coffees. I'm a barista. Can you imagine? From country manager, market manager, all that stuff. I serve coffees in a restaurant, and I enjoy it, actually. I'm discovering aspects of me that I never thought existed. People come there to say, where is he? Where is Mr.? They invite me to their homes. because I chat to people, I call them by name. In Switzerland, people tend to be quite tight, straight jackets. If clients come in, hey, Musso, so and so, you remember my name? Sometimes the 3 generations that come, the baby, what's the baby's name? Luca. Hello, Luca. Where's Luca? Sometimes people say, oh, we came because our little daughter said she wants to see her friend. Okay, where is he?
It's almost a bit of a paradox between the world that you come from and sort of the real world of having relationships and one-on-one.
Yeah. I live in a very, very small town where everybody knows. So suddenly, when I walk in the cities, in the town, not city, it's more about as big as Napir. People know me as a guy from the restaurant.
Fantastic.
Here in South Africa, I'm known for something else. You have to Google me to say, well, who is this? Dude, okay, we Googled you. What? But if you don't, I'm just a dude from the restaurant. It's people that smile. I welcome customers. I make them feel good.
But it's in a way, it's quite.
And I teach, of course.
And then you teach at the business
school. I teach
school.
At the EU business school, yeah.
Okay, so maybe just before we go into the next phase, sort of just give us a bit of background of that teaching position and what you focus on.
Yeah, I got there also. The world is about people knowing you, saying, "Hey, you got to meet this guy." So they had the dean of the faculty at the EU business school. The EU business school has got campuses in Munich, in Germany, in Montreux, in Geneva, Switzerland, and Barcelona. And post-COVID, they added an online faculty. So there are students coming from all over the world. And so the dean of that faculty introduced me to the faculty and said, "Hey, this guy is on reputation management. We need somebody to come and teach this course." And I was invited there, and I teach reputation management, and I also teach the marketing side of retail. How to attract people to a store and how to keep people in a store. So I'm studying a lot about retail management, but also trends in retail, the integration of sustainability issues, the entire value chain, ethics in retail, online, offline, omni-channel, that sort of thing. The migration from the traditional brick and mortar to online. What are the challenges? What are the reputational issues on online, digital? So I teach those 2 courses, and there's a third one actually, which really helps students integrate multicultural environments. And it's real reputation. How do you manage your reputation? If you say you're somebody who was grew up in Saudi Arabia or Afghanistan, very homogenous culturally, religiously, and then you get a cool job in America and your boss is a lesbian. How do you navigate that space? Do you say, "Oh, no, this is haram, I can't accept it," or do you say, "Okay, how do I work?" So we all grow up and
it's a
navigate.
social framework almost that you are.
Yeah, so we basically, I say we all have to navigate a world in which the rules are not made in our upbringing or by our own people or by our own culture. Yeah, so you suddenly constantly have to question the things that you were taught, that you took for granted when you were growing up, as you confront different worlds. And how do you stay alive? Because you could lose your job, right? You could say or do something stupid, especially if you come from a very main way, masculine, toxic masculinity reigns, and you suddenly work with females and you say stupid things that could end up with you in trouble, losing your job. So how do you navigate a world where you need to be yourself, but also be mindful that it's not just about you?
Okay. I mean, so maybe just before we dig into some of the detail that you are focusing on in terms of brand essay, but just reputation management, just to put a pin in that, is become quite a minefield.
Yeah.
In the days of AI-generated videos and electronic media and social media, specifically electronic reputation management, and this is it's always been a passion of yours, and now listening to your story, it's been a passion. Yeah. From a 36,000 foot view for a country, but you are now lecturing on the detail and the framework of reputation.
And the emphasis of one it is on online reputation management. Yeah.
So, in your mind, where are we finding ourselves as a society in terms of reputation? Because we are in this grey area where if somebody really had the means and wanted to get at you through whether it's AI or anything else, you are in trouble. And we're now seeing it. We're seeing it in the US. We've seen it in the US. We've seen it with Brexit. We've seen it with the scandal around Cambridge Analytica. So it is a minefield that we're finding ourselves in. So maybe just some of your views about reputation. How do we manage it? How do we look at it at the moment?
Okay, first of all, and there's a personal reputation. We all will navigate. You have to be mindful of your own image, whom you also said, with what you do, what you say. And I interact a lot on social media, Facebook, for instance. I'm very, very mindful of how I respond to people. Very much. I don't do anger stuff, and I don't start a conversation that I cannot manage. I don't go into mud pits, etc. But maybe let me take it back to, I always say to my students that every brand has to have five elements. One, vision. Where are you going with the brand? Even whether it's an individual, personal brand, where do you imagine yourself in 20 years' time? If you think about South Africa's destination brand in 1994, you project to 29 years later, almost 30 today. If you close your eyes back in 1994 and imagine 20 years, 30 years later, what did you think? And if you open those eyes, is what you see today? Are we heading towards a vision? Every brand must have a vision, and then you chart a journey to realize that vision. But you can't get there if you don't have a set of values. You need values. What are the things that are acceptable and that are not acceptable? In terms of countries, cities, you have bylaws, you have laws, and everybody has to adhere to those laws. You can't have laws that are good for some and not for others. You don't want to create Orwellian animal farms, and it becomes a problem, right? So you need a set of values that are clear, and there's got to be sticks and carrots, all right? You also need leadership, and by leadership, I mean men or women who understand the values, who understand where the brand is going, who are armed with high levels of emotional intelligence, integrity, balance, vision, and who know that everything that you do, especially when you're a leader, somebody else below you is watching you, whether you like, no matter how friendly you are, or nice, you're accessible. The challenge with being a good leader, and you have people following you, is there's got to be a distance between you and the people. But that mustn't be a huge distance, because then you become inaccessible. Then you live in your own cloud. But you must also be not too enmeshed with your people. Then, because from time to time, you're going to have to make decisions that are important that the people might not like. If you become too buddy, you go smoking dacha with some of your people.
You need the objectivity.
You miss. So there's got to be there's a necessary distance that must happen between you and your people, because it's a lonely space. If you become a leader because you want to be popular, you want everybody to love you, you're not going to make it. There's times. And Mandela was a very good leader in that. He was able to say no. When Mandela said, "I'm going to have coffee with Betsy Verwoerd," people said, "Are you mad? Are you crazy?" He said no. And he wasn't arrogant about it. He said, "Let me tell you why it's important for me to go and have coffee with Betsy Verwoerd." Right? When Mandela said, people said, "Oh, we want to change the Springbok emblem, we don't like it." And they were all rowdy, invictors there. And he said, "Shh, calm down. The Springboks belong to all of us. Let me tell you why it's important." That's leadership. You don't seem to be loud. The majority is not always right. In South Africa, we tend to think that the majority is always right. It's not true. So you need a leader who's able to discern,
navigate his way through that,
to stay above the fray. But you can't do that if you don't have the moral high ground. So since Mandela, we've never had a leader with sufficient moral high ground to be able to say, you can't do that, it's wrong. Even the current leader can't do that, because they'll point other things to him. Right? So you can't lead when you're compromised. It's like when somebody's blackmailing you. You can't lead, you can't do the things you need to do because, okay, you do that, I'm going to show it, I'm going to put it in the papers. You can't lead. You just go away or just deal with it. I'm saying. So you need vision, you need leadership, a set of values, but you also need, the first thing is as a brand, you need to have to exercise a 360-degree view of the world around you. The world in which you operate, inside, outside. In other words, what is going on in your world that could compromise you? Sometimes it's your best friends, but you need, if you're a business, the competitive environment, of course, but you also must understand the socio-cultural and political dynamics in the place where you operate. If you think about some of the big brands that came here, for instance, a number of years ago, I think H&M, advertised a little hoodie with a little black boy on with the words, "I'm the best monkey in the market." Now, they didn't realize that to say that in a market like this, so they underestimated the socio-cultural dynamics of the market in which they were operating in South Africa, right? So you call black people monkeys anywhere in the world, you're going to be in trouble. And the other brand came in here with the hair thing. Remember they had, they say if you use our hair, this is great hair, it was white hair, or white hair of a white person, or a Caucasian, and on the other side was hair of a black woman. And they said, if you use a product, you're going to gray hair. How stupid can that be? And the thing with those people is that they didn't have sufficient diversity in their teams. Sometimes people have picture perfect diversity, but people don't have the space to express themselves. So this is our team. See, blacks, white, colored, Indian, we all mix. It's beautiful. We transform. But the boss doesn't allow people to express themselves. So you can say, ma'am, say
so
no.
Authenticity.
Authenticity. Yeah, you need to create space. Diversity is not just picture perfect. You need to say, as a Muslim, do you think people would accept this? As a black, as a Zulu, as a what? How do you? Because you say things that don't work. That seem great, but you're far away from the market, from the people you want to sell the stuff from. So as a brand, online, offline, you need to understand, as a person, what are the values that drive me? For instance, I discuss a lot of controversial things, and from time to time, someone will come and say, "F you." I will never say "F you" back to a person, because I know that because people tell me, people watch how I respond to stuff like that.
But what I'm reading between the lines, what you're saying really isn't it, when it goes for leadership or for branding and leaders too. I mean, you're 100% correct. It really is a brand that is walking in front of a nation, of a group of people. But what you're saying is that unless there is an authenticity towards your values,
right,
you are willing to defend and articulate those values, no matter what the noise.
Right. And if you can defend them without arrogance, without taking out a gun, if you can, and Mandela was able to do that. Yeah. So with love, with empathy, you explain, and not everybody. Not everybody is going to agree with you. Some people are angry because they have other existential issues in their lives, right? But you have a bigger picture. You understand. You have the wisdom. You understand. So empathy is important. Somebody comes and angry, they call you names. You don't have to call them names, but you understand where they come from. They've just lost somebody, and they're really angry, and you're telling, but actually you have to generate. So you need to be able to reach out to a person. Somebody, a woman, a lady in your company comes there to say, listen,
you need to read the room. You need to understand
but you also need to, as a leader, to realize that, I used to have a boss who used to say, Solly, when you're a leader, he wasn't my boss actually. When I was in Canada, the then High Commissioner to South Africa, Billy Moody, he's dead now. He's late. He was an amazing man, really amazing man. And he used to say, Solly, when you're a leader, you must always wear your tie. He didn't mean literally. He meant that you must not forget that you're a leader of a team. So you don't go around jolling with the girls in your team. You don't go around smoking ganja with the boys or whatever. People see you as that person who has the power to decide whether they get a promotion or they get a raise or they get kept. No matter how friendly you are, you're still the boss. Don't lose that side. And people forget that there's a huge responsibility that comes with leading any team. When you lead a nation as complex, because South Africans, we are diverse, we are complex, we are opinionated. Everybody thinks they're right. So if you come here and you have a short fuse, you can never lead this country, because I kid you not, somewhere in this country, someone is going to challenge you and tell you, you're mad, get out of here. How do you respond to that? Do you show them the middle finger? Do you just respond like Becky Clayle when you said to Ian Cameron, get out of here? You don't. That's not leadership. Right, because you understand this person is in pain. I used to have a client, and I'll mention it, Metro Rail, when I was here. And there was a man called Van Minen from Simonstown. His son, only child, was killed on a train by robbers. They got into the train, they marked him, they threw him out, they killed him. He was angry, really, really angry. Okay? And then he became the Mr. Dial a Code. Whenever there was something wrong with Metro Rail, the media, Cape Talk, with local media called him, he always had something to say. That was like, wow, okay, and all the people were angry at Metro Rail. The then CEO of Metro Rail didn't want to talk to him. Yeah, he's negative. But I said to her, but that's a person you have to speak to. This man is a human who lost a child. Just reach out to him as a person. She refused. Fortunately, she was fired. The new guy came in. The first thing I said to him, I said, there's a lady there. So there's a man, Mr. Van Minen, who's angered, who lost a child on one of your trains. You need to reach out to him, please. And don't wear your fancy suit and don't call him into your fancy office. Go and meet him for coffee at Mag and Bean or Vida, somewhere. Wear a t-shirt. Just meet human to human. Meet this man and say, this is who I am. I heard about your story. I'm the new guy in Metro Rail. Reach out to him, not as a boss. And I promise you he did. And that story ended. The anger. Because suddenly Mr. Minen had access to somebody.
Be a human first.
We are human first.
But be decisive in terms of the leadership that you provide.
Yeah. You have to be very clear. I think that you can't. When people know that you're taking them for a ride, they'll pick up very quickly that you're taking them. Very quickly. So you must never try to play tricks. We live in a world where Big Brother is all over. And sometimes I could be sitting with you in a committee of 3 or 4 or 2 people and plot how we're going to lie to the people. And 6 months later, 1 year later, you and I are not friends anymore. There's a fallout, right? You go out and say, you know what, I'm going to show him. I'm going to tell him exactly what happened in that room. And you start leaking out things of 2 years ago, right? And what happens to me as a brand, it pushes me back onto the back foot. So as a brand that respects itself, you don't want to be on the back foot, on the defensive. It's a tricky world, especially with the digital world, because you think attacks come from anywhere and they go viral very quickly. How do you manage that?
Very difficult to. There's no more borders and there's no more real clear-cut enemies either.
You don't manage a brand. Actually, I said to my students, the term brand management or reputation management is a misnomer. There's no such thing. What you do is you inform perceptions. Yes. It's up to people. Because what you tell me, like before I came into this interview, you Googled me, you looked for that. So everything that you know about me is not from me. There was a time when everything that people knew about brands came from the brand. So one loud hailer from the brand. This we are, Now they Google you first, they talk to other people and say, that's nonsense, don't believe it, look at this. I'm saying, so you don't really manage your brand. What you do is you inform. You want the information coming from you to be used by the information coming from other sources, by the person who matters to you, your stakeholder, to decide whether on the balance of information that they have in front of them, are you credible? Can they trust you? Can they do business with you? So nobody manages a brand, their own brand, not today.
Not anymore. Well, I mean, what resonates with what you're saying, I think specifically young people listening to, is that you have to realize that you are your own brand as well.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Everything you say,
that's your first
your point that you made around how you respond on social media, what you post on social media.
Pictures of yourself, everything.
Yes,
how you respond to others.
And what you put out. I mean, and I think the great luxury that the new generation also has is that you can shape a brand very proactively.
Right.
Your own brand in terms of going into the job market, in terms of creating.
You have to do it consciously. Yeah.
Yes, I like it. That's that conscious brand, conscious personal brand management.
Yeah. You need to be. Whom are you seen with? Where do you party? So a number of years ago when I lived here, a friend from Joburg said, hey, I want to invite you to this awesome place. I said, yeah, let's go. What? It turned out to be a place where you pay for sex. I said, I'm not going there. I don't want to, even if I don't end up paying for sex when I don't want somebody takes a picture of me coming out. I'm going to have to explain what I was doing, and it's going to be my word against theirs.
I have two teenagers, and I mean that's a discussion. I'm actually having such a discussion tonight with one of them because everyone has a camera.
Yeah.
Everyone has an opinion.
Yeah.
And everyone has a platform from where they can voice that. So
things stay. Mr. Google will find you.
And it's interesting. I attended years ago actually when he was still under house arrest an electronic session with Julius Assange.
Right.
And he was being really attacked by the audience. It was a big audience about the way that WikiLeaks leaked a lot of this information. Mm-hmm. And he made a statement that stuck with me over the years where he said that he believes that we are moving into the age of ultimate transparency.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a lot of downside to that. But the reality is that every world leader, leader for that matter, needs to realize that everything they say, everything they write, and almost to a degree everything they think is recorded and will come to the light. And that should...
Yeah,
and
anybody, all of us, not just the
anybody,
leaders.
For all of us, but anybody, any leader that thinks that anything will stay hidden is fooling himself, is naive. I think
especially if we see there plotting deception.
Yeah. But just to expand a little bit on that, I mean, if you look at where South Africa is now, and we're going to talk a little bit about TUSAM, it seems like South Africa is looking for a next Mandela. I mean, we are disillusioned by our leaders at the moment. We are disillusioned. And that's not only South Africa, to be fair, that's the world. I mean, look at the American Democratic Republican tussle for leadership, and you look at the quality of the candidates, and it doesn't matter where you are, but it seems like we're waiting for this superhero to come and rescue us, like Nelson Mandela.
And it's a big mistake.
But given where we are now, and given you've now zoomed out a little bit from Switzerland, you're looking from, in the day-to-day fight so much, you're now looking in. What would be your diagnosis of where we're finding ourselves as a South African society, as a part of it, but sort of somebody who sort of has the luxury of perspective?
I think the challenge with South Africa today, just a quick reference to a French, I need to remember his name. He wrote it, is a columnist who wrote a piece on, in French, is l'archipélisation de la politique française. So the narratives in South Africa is the same. There are many centers of narratives.
Yes.
So there was a time when it was the left and the right, it was clear. Now it's this Mashaba, this Mamani, this
fragmented.
It's extremely fragmented. Voila. So it's very hard to rally the people of South Africa. But there was a time when the enemy was apartheid. Either you were for or against apartheid.
It was easy to have
exactly. Now, and in the civil society space where I'm playing, but also in the political space, there are many egos. Everybody wants to think they will be the next Mandela. There are political, and I speak, I'm very fortunate that many political leaders in the opposition, not the ANC and the EFF, take my calls, and I have coffees with these people. And many people think that they must be they have the answer for South Africa, and I think it's wrong. We need to move away from, we need to remember 1955, when people came together to discuss what kind of country do we want. And that led to the creation of the Freedom Charter, some of which clauses ended up in the Constitution of 2006. So the people of South Africa, not politicians because they've messed up, the people of South Africa need to find a way to converge and agree. What kind of country do you want? From international positioning, foreign policy, education, health. But we also must talk about the powers in the presidency of South Africa. I mentioned earlier the former Deputy Chief Justice, Moseneke, mentioned that the drafters of our constitution placed too much power in the presidency, thinking that everybody was going to be like Mandela. If you think about it today, if the SIU, the so-called SIU's, special investigative unit, were to suspect a crime, they can't go investigate unless they get a presidential decree from the president, who also happens to be the president of the ANC, which is sitting right at the center of our mess, the mess we find ourselves in. The Zondo Commission report was handed to the president of the ANC, which is right at the center of the. So we need to create buffers. We thought we had institutions of democracy that would sit between us and hell as buffers. Those institutions have been messed up. They've been weakened, repurposed to serve the interests of a criminal network in our politics. ESCOM, Transnet, SAA, all these state-owned institutions are messed up because there are toxic interests that are embedded in them that link back to political power in South Africa. The people, us, we need to converge and agree, and they will, because we are so diverse, so complex as a nation, we will agree on some things, we will disagree on some things. But let's build a basket of things that hold us together. Not whether somebody is gay or lesbian or intersex, or whether someone is Christian, Muslim, Jewish, or whether someone is Zulu, Xhosa. Those are some, you can be all those things, but you can still be South African. But what are the things that hold us together as a nation? I think we need to remind ourselves, and we don't need a Messiah, a Mandela. Of course, because we are the people that we are, we do need a voice that's credible, that can sit at the center and say, guys, please, please stop listening. Can we just, and we don't have that voice. Most of the voices that rise are in some way compromised, in some way aligned to a campaign, aligned to a political party, aligned to an agenda. We need a voice that's not aligned.
A neutral one.
A neutral one. That will be credible. And that will be able to say no, yes, yes, no. Come. And that's not about it. It's not a voice that says, I'm going to be the big, to save you. That's an enabler. We need a voice that will facilitate a national conversation.
But to your point around brand management, it's back to values, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's back to the values of rural South Africa.
Yeah. Levels of distrust are massive. We need somebody we can trust. We are automatically suspicious in South Africa of any voice because we ask ourselves, okay, what's the trick there? What are they hiding? What do they really want?
Especially in the last 5 years, there's a distrust of any central voice, really, in terms of.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that we need to dig deep and rediscover the values that we hold dear,
and
then make sure that those values are represented. And I think this is the
and
big,
articulate
them. Because this is the big test, isn't it? That's lying ahead of our South African society. Is that how do you? Because there's also this apathy that's been. Is that I can't influence.
True.
It's not. I don't have the ability to influence the direction.
Yeah.
But if you have a cell phone and if you have a group of friends, you can. I mean, that is the reality of it, isn't it? So the power of where we are at. So how do you see? I mean, what is the frame of mind that you think we need to adopt and adapt?
But values on and by themselves are great, but they're not sufficient. We need a vision. We need to close our eyes and imagine a South Africa. What country do we want to live in?
Prosperous, multiracial, multicultural,
inclusive. And if you really think about it, I keep saying to people, we don't need race to discriminate against others in order to grow this country. If you grow a country that is caring of any South African child, anybody, in any case, most beneficiaries are going to be black like me because of the sheer number of black people in this country. So you don't need to discriminate against minorities to get there. I want any child, no matter what they look like, to say, you know what, I want to be president one day. And not be told you're dreaming, you're not because of the color of your skin.
Aspiration.
As long as that person lives the values of who we are as a nation, they can lead this country. They can be a positive contributor to this country. So, of course, we need to agree on a set of values, but we also need to be able to say, let's dream again. Let's redefine the vision. What kind of country do you want? And one part of my anger is because I had a vision based on what was said and promised in the early 90s. And that vision has been certainly heading in totally different directions because we put the wrong leaders in place who are there for themselves. And South Africa has been turned into an Orwellian animal farm. Some people are they're sitting in Parliament today, including the Speaker of Parliament, who shouldn't be there. They don't have the moral standing, the ethical standing to be in those positions. Understand? So we, the people, must agree. Having went through the past 30 years, we need to be clear about what you want and what you don't want. And what needs to happen is not just a matter of replacing one party with another party. It's about defining those who come in, where do we want them to go? Do you understand? It's very important. It shouldn't be just a matter of leaving it to politicians to say, vote for me, we will do this for you, or we will lead this country over there. We must be the one to say, hey, we want to vote you, and this is our mandate to you. It's almost like when you employ someone in a position in a company, right? You don't choose solely and then create the job description after. It doesn't work that way. You describe what kind of person, knowing well what is required in a company, where you want this thing to go. Then you say, okay, what kind of person do we need to drive this? Okay, we need maybe an MBA or not. We need this experience. We need this kind of person because that person will be working with a team of people. So you could bring the best team of experienced technicians, technocrats, mathematicians, engineers, whatever, and we bring a schmuck to manage them. The people are going to resign. They're going to leave. How do you bring somebody who will hold the team together? Who will understand that when the team succeeds, he or she succeeds. Okay, so we need to be very clear about not being taken for granted by people who jump on stages and dance and sing slogans and say, yeah, that's the leader we want. No, these countries, we've been there before. So we're not just looking for another hero who speaks good English and dresses nicely. We need somebody who is sufficiently grounded and understands that no matter what, no matter how angry you are one day, we all belong. So there should be some things, and those are some of the things that must go into the basket of things the basket of non-negotiables. Nobody must campaign on race. Nobody. Because race is the pain, it's at the core of our pain in South Africa. You shout racist in a room filled with South African, there'll be a stampede. Okay? So we need to say, how do we hold it? Of course, it doesn't mean that we forget the pain of the legacies of the past, the faraway past and the immediate past. Okay? We can deal with those legacy issues without killing, taking out knives and shouting at each other. We can do it with love, with empathy, with education. Understanding that each one of us approaches the challenges because they have somewhere in their own personal life, they have pain that's not resolved. Sometimes you go into a relationship with somebody, suddenly they get angry at something, what's going on? And when you dig deeper, you find out actually in their childhood, as they were growing up, there were some triggers. And they might not have anything to do with you. But if you have the wisdom to say, but why is this person getting angry each time this thing happens? You realize actually it's deeper than that. It's not about you. How do we help this person then?
It's that old saying, you don't see people as they are, you see them as you are.
Yeah, exactly.
So it really is about digging deep into our humanity again, is to get in touch with our human side, that we are all humans. We all want the same thing, but it's about now finding the empathy inside of yourself in order to then extend that to others.
Yeah, understanding also that we are traumatized. We're a very traumatized nation in South Africa, all of us, by everyday crime, by also things that happen, things that have become normalized. My home was broken into about a month ago. They went in there, took TVs and broke. I never thought anybody could get in there. It's a small English cottage. That broke my foundations. And I say to myself, if I put this on Facebook, people are going to say, oh, welcome to the club. So whatever happens to you today has happened to a whole lot of us. Now I live in a country where I have a forest 5 minutes away from where I live. I can get onto my mountain bike. And the best thing I did when I left South Africa was to take my mountain bike and my road bike with me. Those best things. I left 17 Ks I lost because I cycle every day. I can get into the forest, cycle all the way and along the lake, go up, go over, be alone in the forest. I kid you not. There's a very little chance that something will happen to me. I don't think anything will happen.
You probably don't lock your door either.
Sorry?
You probably don't lock your door either.
No. I have a friend who lives also not too far, he's a neighbor. She says, and she lives alone. She says, when at night I can't sleep, I just go for a walk in the forest. Like even at 2-3 o'clock in the morning. I said, are you mad? But she said, why am I mad? She'll go and walk, nothing happens.
So, and maybe sort of to give listeners some clear direction, because I think it's been a great discussion around sort of where we're finding ourselves and what is required. And we're moving into this very, very important 5 years. It's going to determine, whether the Solly Moengs of the world is going to come back and whether the real Milans of the world is going to stay. So the question is that if you, and this is an all-encompassing sort of general view, if you have to identify a couple of characteristics of the great leader that builds a great brand as a leader and has got will succeed as a leader, what are those characteristics if you have to sort of try and count them on one hand?
Well, I did. Empathy, emotional intelligence, selflessness. Right now, our space, especially the political side, is filled with egos. Everybody wants to be the one who gets to cut the ribbon when you get there. But you can actually contribute to this great project without having to be the one who appears on TV. But you know that you are part of the makers of it. Yeah. But all these guys want to be present. So I'm saying to the leaders in the opposition, why don't you create, those who created a pact, for instance, and others, anyway, South Africa is for a foreseeable future into a multi-party environment. So how about we create a rotational presidency and we propose that to the South Africans so that we don't place power on the heads of some. So it could be 6 months you're president, 6 months you're president, state president, Maimane, Mashaba, so and so, so and so. If your pact obviously gets the vote, okay, and you lead as a pact, you propose South African, but we need to change the electoral system, of course, so that we don't have so-called a country or the public representatives who are not really public representatives, who are party representatives, who take instructions from the political bosses. We need to change a lot of things. The systemic review is needed. So the leader, to answer your question, that we need is someone who's able to say, I want to be, and what does it mean to lead? You're part of a leadership, if you're pact, if you want. I want to contribute to a project that will ensure that we emerge on the other side with not as much obsession about a person as we have today. Because it really should not longer be about a person. It should be about how do we create a country. We're a part of an ecosystem, a South African ecosystem of humans, animals, flora, biological and microbiological oceanic beings. When there's pain in one part of the ecosystem or weakness, it affects others. How do I contribute together with others? Because no one man or no one woman, no one party or civil society movement can create all this. All of us. We have to co-own the future. It's important that we agree that all of us have to co-own the future so that we don't say, yeah, Mandela failed us or Solly failed us, so-and-so failed us. We place all. No, let's take all responsibility, work together. Somebody, of course, has to be the shepherd, as it were, of all this. But that shepherd needs to be armed with lots of humanity, humility, empathy, emotional intelligence. Vision is important, balance. It should not be about themselves, and to help it possible, to make it possible for us to work towards getting closer to realizing a country that we need, where it's not centered on the goodwill or the good health of any one man or woman.
I think that's very well said. If we, again, zoom out a little bit, and you are now lecturing at a business school, Exo Capital that I represent and are involved with is a fund manager. And Brand SA, which I know you're very passionate about, has taken some significant hits. If you have to give an accurate diagnosis from a business perspective, what Brand SA at the moment is being perceived as in the international environment, and what you think we as business can do, because at the end we all have our roles to play, and business, I think, has a huge role to play in terms of facilitating a lot of what we've been discussing. But give us your diagnosis of Brand SA, where we are finding ourselves. How are we being seen by the international community?
I think we were a brand with lots of promise in Africa, around the world, and we had an amazing leader. Many people. So I was very fortunate, as I said. I was working for South African tourism, and in both in Canada and the USA. And Mandela was president during those years, and part of our project was to invite influential Americans into South Africa because they're credible. When they come back and say, yeah, been there, you're gonna go, they're more credible. People with money, like basketball players, people in the arts, in film, etc. And those people, almost without fail, each one of them said, I will go to your country if you make it possible for me to meet President Mandela.
So he was one of our big brands.
Oh, definitely, absolutely. That leader, the leader of a brand is important. People forget Richard Branson brought the Virgin Active group here because Mandela said, hey, come here, invest here. And many others, people, even locals, people said, please build a school over there, do this. But they believe this man. So when you have a leader who's with that much credibility, they can help us attract this country. Now, a brand is like an iceberg. The visible part of the iceberg is colorful, the logo, that's what we've been celebrating now. The music, the beautiful, Sia Kolisi saying all these, the wonderful things. Now, hey, you must be president. But the submerged part of the brand, that's where the pillars of the brand sit. In terms of a country, the policies sit there, the policy outlook of South Africa sits there, the values, whether are we a country that is grounded on the rule of law. We remember that we are grey listed now. And we've been downgraded a few times because people no longer trust our systems, our policies. There's a reasonable suspicion that a lot of organized crime money might have been going through South Africa and all that stuff. So we need to go back to the foundations of this country. We need to say, what country do you want to be known for, and what role do you want to play in the world? How do we attract not just short-term investors who come and take all the money and get out quickly, but people with a long-term view who say, I want to put money in this country, I know it's going to go somewhere. We need to create better levels of predictability in terms of policies. economic policy, political policy. We don't want to say, whoa, what if Malema comes in and suddenly all my investment gets taken into the blacks? You know what I'm saying? So we need to be very, very clear about what the policy grounding of South Africa and the institutional grounding have been weakened big time. As a brand, we need to strengthen them. Business South Africa, unfortunately, big business in South Africa has already taken sides. They're working with the ANC to make it look good ahead of the next elections. This project that I started recently we're going to be funded by BLSA, at least we're talking towards that, and then suddenly they got an instruction to not participate in anything that aims to change the outcomes or to influence the outcomes of the next elections. But big business, the six designated CEOs have to work with Ramaphosa, not six designated CEOs have to work with to report to Ramaphosa every 6 weeks to tell him what project they make, progress they're making with infrastructure, crime, and energy issues. So
is this the Business Against Crime initiative?
Yeah, but if you look at during state capture, a lot of the key auditing firms betrayed us. And I've written about it, I've spoken about this. They forget because they just want to create a client and have the client repeat the contract with them and stay with them. And then they practice the art of looking the other way. They see things that reflects things that should reportable stuff. They don't report on those things. They've enabled a lot of stuff to be happened. So suddenly it was no longer about public interest. It was about their own business interests. I mean, the whole thing also...
We're only interested about public interest.
And also being an auditing firm that also provides market management services to a client, and you do auditing, you can't be neutral.
And that's a very... And I think that call to action is a great one, is that the call to action to business is that we are at a crossroads and that silence is no longer an option.
No.
And
you must be able to look at the beast in the eye. And so we want to invest in the country. We love this country, but we can't do it under these circumstances, under these conditions. We can't.
And the reality of it is that as a director of a business, you have a fiduciary duty to make sure that business thrives and survives.
Yeah, that's a problem.
So on the one hand, I think this is the balance that business is, the tightrope that business will have to walk. On the one hand, you need to have your business survive. On the other hand, you can't stay quiet, and you need to be a force of positive change. And for each one is going to be looking different. But you cannot.
But when you give money to the beast, I mean, when you fund a party like the ANC, surely you could still do the best you can to run a business that is credible, that's that rich. I don't know if Pick and Pay under Raymond Ackerman would have given a lot of money to the ANC. The ANC is has messed up this country. So you can still invest in building a society, in building a company. And I totally understand that you would also come under threat from the government that says, well, if you have a big tender with us or contract with us, say you're a cellular company and hold 3, 4, 5 departments, get their contracts from you, and they say, well, if you don't, we're going to count you down. And they can, because they have the power to do that. So maybe we need to build a country where they can't do that anymore. But where if they do, the outcry would be so huge because now we've given too much power and placed it in the hands of a small bunch of politicians who think that they own this country. And we didn't sign up in 94 to be a one-party state forever. Yep. So business has to grow something and be strong and say, no, this is not good for South Africa and for the people of South Africa.
Yep. So to bring all of that together and to sort of summarize your philosophy, TUSAM, give us a bit of perspective on the vision and sort of how you see that unfolding and how you are actively promoting and driving that agenda.
Well, first of all, I'm disappointed because many people thought I'd join a political party. Some of them, people in the political party space, have been inviting me to consider being part of them. I refuse because I think there's work to strengthen the hand of the civil society in South Africa so that we stop treating politicians as heroes and heroines. And to do that, we need to converge as a civil society. In the same way that I've said, it's good for you guys in the political side to converge, to create your multi-party thing and also. We in civil society, there are still too many egos. Everybody thinks they got the answer for South Africa. how do we work together as civil society? And that's where I'm trying to go, to build. Now, when I came here, this trip, part of it was to host a People Summit. And I cancelled it 2 days ago because people are afraid to either speak at it or they're afraid to give it funds. So there are people who pretend to be angry. They all go on TV, yeah, we are so disappointed. We say, okay, we need to change. When they say we need political change, they run away. Nobody wants to say that. Some of the most prominent people, I don't want to mention their names, they are afraid of the ANC so much because some of them have got interest. Many of them have got interest. Some of them occupy positions that they know the ANC could just topple. I have a young man now who's just been kicked out of Standard Bank. He's done nothing wrong because he speaks. He's got about 80,000. He's going to launch a book soon. I won't mention his name without his permission. Book. And I wrote the preface of his book, which is going to be launched in November later. His boss in Standard Bank, and his boss is supposed to know what was going on. I said, but what's going on? From somewhere up in the board, a word came that we don't want this man because he's a young Zulu guy, but he pushes ultra-right policies like, why do we need to give more power to the market, that sort of thing, you know. And Standard Bank, of course, is owned by the Chinese, right? So, I mean, I'm speculating here but I do know, I know that it's owned by the Chinese. They have a big shareholding at least there. What I'm saying is, from the time he called me to say, Solly, this is what is being done to me, I knew it was political. And because if you go and I'll tell you his name after this, you can check him out. And he said, I said, you have to choose whether, and on his Twitter page, he's not mentioning Standard Bank or whom he works for. He's he's a consultant on economic policy analysis. He speaks out and many people call him, when you're a black person and you speak right, they call you, yeah, you're being paid. You're a kitchen nigger, basically. I've been called kitchen nigger many times. And he's young, 28, 29 years old, brilliant. I think he has a future. So he chose to say, okay, well, let them go to hell. I'm sorry, I'm not going to stop being who I am. He's in London now speaking at a conference where he's meeting all these big guys in policy making and all that. So it can be treacherous here. People are afraid to lose their jobs because you could have children, a house to pay, a family, a car to pay. So they're afraid to speak. Some of those veterans of the ANC who pretend to be angry, and a few weeks before the elections they say, let's vote ANC. Some people pretend to be angry, but they're actually saying, no, there must be a good ANC in this ANC. Let's find it and vote for it. And I say, no, we've given the ANC whatever form it comes in 30 years. A few years ago, people said, I lost friends who said, let's vote Ramaphosa, let's push for Ramaphosa. This is the last hope for South Africa. I kid you not, some prominent people are not talking to me. Actually, when his two came to apologize to me, one told me to F off when I said, I'm not voting for this guy because we're actually voting for a political party. We're not voting for an individual. So you asking me to vote for Ramaphosa. Look at all the people surrounding, all the monsters surrounding Ramaphosa, and look at where we're at now. I've been proven right. So we need courage. I want to encourage the civil society, South Africans, to get together. And I took unpaid leave from Switzerland to come here, for my country, because I do want to come back home. But if the monster remains in power, I cannot come home. Because it's like going home to the house that I shared with my abusive partner because I miss the parties, the dinners, the outings. But then one day the clap returns, boom. You know what I'm saying? So it's a pity, but I can't come and stay here permanently if the ANC stays in power. I can't. Okay, the ANC must go, the South Africa must wake up. But if South Africans remain so divided, they can't have a cohesive conversation about what country they want, the ANC will stay in power. And it's not in the interest of China and Russia that the ANC loses power. Who knows what is being done? And this obsession with voter education, let's get more youngsters to vote, let's educate them. Well, you educate them and then tell them to vote. People ask me, well, so whom do you want us to vote for? There's nobody. I say, the guys who are in politics, in opposition politics, they are not resonating with the people. I have friends of all colors, as you can tell. And they say, Solly, there's nobody to vote for. But these guys are here, no. So I said to them, you need to offer something new to South Africans, okay, so that they can wake up and say, yes, we can save this country. And we can't do that so there's a role that must be played, which I'm trying to play with others, of course, I'm not a one person, in civil society to strengthen the hand of civil society. We need to look at the IEC. Elections are rigged long before they're held. So this obsession with wearing a fancy T-shirt and a fancy shirt and stand at a voting station to make sure nobody claps anybody else and you say we've had a free and fair election is nonsense. Okay, you need to ask who gets appointed at the head of the IEC, who gets the tender to print ballot papers. how many get printed as opposed to how many are needed. Who stores them? What's the role of SAR to teachers? Most elections are held in high schools, and the most principals of those high schools will become the election station managers. They're the ones who get to keep the key to the room where the boxes get hidden overnight to be collected the next day. They were the ones who decide who can get into that room and stuff those boxes with other stuff. Okay, who transports them? We've seen SAPS, designated SAPS people taking ballot papers to places where it shouldn't be. So by the time you sit there with your fancy T-shirt, the election has been decided. Who controls the IT system? We're very naive in this country. And many of the things that lead to rigging elections have happened. This is not speculation. And you can Google Worldview. Solely, I interviewed somebody there, and I speak to people. In many, I don't mention all of the people I speak to. And from the belly of the IEC, I know that elections have been rigged, and they will be rigged again. And then people are going to say, oh, these stupid black people keep voting for the same people in power. Maybe they don't. Maybe most of them don't. Maybe I'm sure some do. Maybe some don't. But because we normalize the thinking that the ANC will always win, so we give them cover. Yeah.
What you're saying is that we need to become much more critical in our thinking, critical in who we trust with our elections.
We trusted the Reserve Bank. The Reserve Bank stood up recently and said, no, actually, nothing wrong with Phala. You do exactly what it did and tell me if they'll do the same. So the institutions that we used to trust, I mean, the Public Protector, Office of the Public Protector was one of the most respected. Even the Public of the National Director of Public Prosecutions, when Vusi Pikoli suspended by Mbeki because he wanted to defend his party, Motlanthe came and kicked him out. The same Motlanthe who oversaw the undoing of the Scorpios is the one who's walking around with a grey beard appearing to be the Sarge, and everybody must listen to him. He's got the answers. Nonsense. All these old ANC people who were there when they destroyed this country, in their old age now, they're working about collecting fees to speak because they are president so-and-so. Nonsense. They don't have the answer. They were there when they did. They never stood up to say, I'm sorry. You know, when I was in the system, I enabled this to happen. I'm sorry, but now I see different. They don't say that. They come back and speak with a different voice. Okay? The answers to this country don't come from the ANC, past, present, or future. They come from South Africans standing up to say, actually, this is our country. This is not an ANC country. And it needs courage. People will be killed, lost, jobs will be lost, livelihoods will be destroyed, but tough. Throughout the history of humanity, men and women have stood up and said, this is not good. It must stop. And you lose your life for that sometimes. But so what?
And I wanted to end this podcast with a word for you, for listeners and for South Africa, but I think that was the best word I could have asked for. So thank you for that. Maybe on a lighter note, and we never got to the light part of it because it's been an exceptionally hard-hitting conversation, Solis, and I thank you for your candidacy and that you've been honest about it. But when you are not fighting the big bad wolf, what are you doing to relax? What are your hobbies? I mean, we know you like French. We know you like ballroom dancing.
I cycle. What I said earlier, the best thing I did was to take my bike. So I just get lost on my bicycle. On my mountain bike, I can just take my mountain bike and just get into the forest, going over the hills. I can cycle with friends. I can cycle alone. Either way, I just...
That's how you clear your head.
It's a way I find myself in my own space. And
it's like meditation in itself.
Yeah, and I think a lot when I'm on my bike. So I can just hit the road bike and go. Usually I don't decide how far I'm going. If my body says, just don't stop, I keep going. I once rode from Bulle to Lausanne. It's quite because Lausanne is in a hole, and coming back is tough. People say, "Are you crazy?" But it's not a huge long distance in Swiss terms, but it's a very mountainous country. So yeah, I cycle, I read, I ride, I engage with people. But cycling is really the best thing I ever started doing was cycling.
Yeah, you seem to have a big love for nature between your work with Chris
and 2 days before I left South Africa, a friend of mine, French guy who lives there, Facebook friend, we meet, but we're not really social friends, calls me, and he didn't know I was going because I didn't announce it, only to my friend. He said, "So I have something for you." Yeah. I met him up in Gardens. He gives me the book. The book the title is Looking Inward.
Yes.
And I said, wow, I'm going to read this book when I get into the plane so that when I arrive in Geneva, I would have finished reading this book. This book is about finding your happiness where you are. A lot of times we think my happiness is in the past or it's in the future. When I was there, I was happy. Oh, would have, should have, you cry. Or you think when I buy that car, when I get this job, I'll be happy. But actually, it's now. You have no control of yesterday or the future. Find happiness where you are. Give the best of who you are where you are. I work in a restaurant. When I'm there, I'm not a lecturer. I'm not a political commentator. I'm the guy who's serving people. They don't care what else I do. They just want good service. So when I'm there, I'm present. And wherever you are in life, give the best of where you are. Maybe somebody's watching you and they might say, hey, I have something for you. Maybe not. But it doesn't matter. Just do it. Because it's good for the heart.
Good for the soul.
Yeah.
That's a great way to finish this off. Solly, thank you. Thank you for being authentic. Thank you for your courage in what you keep saying and what you keep on saying. I think you've challenged me, and I hope you challenged many of the listeners to realize that the time is now, and that you have to be present, and we have to make decisions. We cannot sit on the sidelines.
No, or else we're going to fall irretrievably over the precipice, and it's looking us in the face.
And that is something none of us wants.
No.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And all the best with everything you're busy with. It's a long list, both in Switzerland and here. And we hope to catch up with you in a year or two and hear some interesting stories about the progress that's being made.
Yeah, we'll see. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Solly.
Okay.
Thank you for spending the last hour with us. Don't forget to subscribe for new episodes and other content, and remember to share any feedback on shaperspodcast.co.za. We'd love to hear from you. Should you have any questions, you'll find my details on the website. Until next time, cheers.